Second, we've got to educate our people. My wife, who's teaching as I speak, she has her doctorate, 2 master's degrees and a doctorate. She teaches at a community college full time. She continued to teach 15 credits just like she did all through being second lady. She has an expression. She said, any country that out-educates us will out-compete us. That's why in 2014, when the president used, the thing the president loved most about State of the Union addresses is to be able to turn and say, and Joe's going to. You think I'm kidding? He never would tell me what he was going to tell me to do. He thought that was really funny. But you may remember in 2014, he said, Joe's going to do a year-long study on jobs of the future. So I traveled the country, meeting with major CEOs. Between Penny Pritzker and I, we interviewed over 340 CEOs of the top 500 corporations. We met with all kinds of business people. And the overwhelming message we received from the business community is the same one you've received. We need a better educated workforce. Surprise, surprise, surprise. We found that by the end of this decade, 6 in 10 jobs are going to need some training, some education beyond high school, or you're not going to make it. Digitalization, automation, artificial intelligence, Moore's Law, these changes are coming so fast, you can't commit yourself to anything other than lifelong learning. I just did Harvard's commencement. I pointed out, if you graduate with a PhD in astrophysics, if you don't go back for education, you're obsolete in 10 years. You will be obsolete in 10 years. That's not hyperbole. That's a fact. Quite simply, 12 years of education is no longer sufficient. Do any one of you think that if we were starting from scratch like we did back at the turn of the 20th century, and being the first nation, major nation in the world to have universal, non-means tested 12 years of education, we'd have stopped at 12 years if we're doing it today? Raise your hand if anybody thinks 12 years is enough in the 21st century. We know it's not. So we need widespread access to affordable education. College, community college, they should be free in my view. There goes that big spending Biden again, man. We can put every single solitary kid who qualifies, person, my wife's average age of her students is 29. We can put every single qualified student in community college, in college, raising the number from 6 to 9 million, increasing the GDP by 0.2% per year, and we can do it for $6 billion. How in God's name are we going to pay for that? If I eliminate stepped-up basis, just that, out of $1.3 trillion+ in tax loopholes, tax expenditures, that's only $17 billion. $17 billion. No evidence that it produces any growth initiatives. It's not inheritance tax. I didn't know what stepped-up basis was because you may remember when I filed my financial disclosure as vice president, the front page of the Washington Post said, it's probable no man has ever assumed the office of vice president with fewer assets than Joe Biden. My net worth was between $50,000 and $155,000. When I left after 44 years, it was still between $50,000 and $155,000 because I said I'd never own a stock or a bond. For fear of conflict, I would never engage in a business enterprise, even those that were legal and appropriate, and I would never accept an honorarium. And so I got the dubious distinction. But I also had absolute independence my whole career. But here's the point. You go out, you all know what stepped-up basis is. Well, you go out and you make a profit. You're about to go and pay a capital gains. You're heading to your broker to sell it. You don't do it now. You do it online. You get hit by a truck. It gets left to your son or the daughter. The capital gains you're going to pay 6 minutes earlier no longer has to be paid. No evidence that generates greater growth. Leaving it's not an inheritance. That was due 10 minutes earlier. You can eliminate that. Put every single kid in community college for free. Cutting in half the cost of a 4-year education. Increasing productivity. What the hell are we doing? I believe every state university should be free. We can afford it. It's closer to 40 billion. But we can afford it out of that 1,300,300,000,000 and I think it's 48 billion. Look, we need to make a lifelong learning commonplace. From the PhD to the factory worker, education is part of every worker's livelihood. And it's necessary as the world continues to change so rapidly.
Thanks for watching. Be sure to like and subscribe for more videos from Brookings.